Now I'm going to introduce my old friend, Mr. Ole Mackeprang, who is a European financier. His talk is The Euro from Dream to Reality. And you may remember, a few years ago, the euro was declared dead on arrival by people who are supposed to know better. And today it's being hailed as superior to the US dollar. Ole Mackeprang has worked in 62 countries, principally France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. He's worked for Bank Rothschild and Bank Union Parisienne, and he'll discuss some of the practical changes.
Banque de l'Union Parisienne.
Ah, okay. Doesn't it? Okay. All right, he's going to...
Every time I worked for a financial institution, it went out of business.
All right, this will be an interesting talk. He's going to discuss some of the practical changes that the euro has brought, as well as some of the larger questions. Please welcome Ole Mackeprang.
Thank you, Steve. Guten Tag. Meine Damen und Herren, heute Abend werden wir über die Euro sprechen. Vous comprenez? Très bien l'allemand, n'est-ce pas? Oppure prefere italiano, no? Oh, microphone.
Yeah, come on. How do you expect to understand you?
Capisce meglio così? Oppure ricomincio tutto? Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Sind Sie jetzt zufrieden? Eh bien, si vous n'êtes pas content, tant pis pour vous. Bonne tarde, godverdamme. Disse vi ska prata över de nya pengar, kippis. Ich brauche kein Wasser, mein Herr. Noch nicht. Später an. There is only one of the European countries in which they speak English. Which one is that? In one of the European countries who are part of the euro. They're not part of it. Which is the only European, I mean not European, which is the only euro country, because I'm supposed to speak about the euro. That's Ireland, so let's continue in Irish. All right, my name is Ole, I'm from Denmark. I know that my country voted against, my country and myself voted against the euro because we didn't like the idea. Does it still work? Yes. We are sort of conservative people and we have a different money culture than they have elsewhere. So we thought it was smart staying out of the system. And I'm not convinced that I was right. I started thinking the other way because now I got used to it. I got used to liking the euro. But let me start with taking a look at my notes. Yeah, because otherwise we'll start with the end. And because I can speak about this for years. Let's first of all start by distinguishing three things that people usually mix up. There's the European community, which is one thing that started a long time ago in 1970s. The so-called common market. There is the European Constitution, which is out of fashion these days, so we shall not speak about it, because even the founders of the idea suddenly gave up. It may happen to us here, right? And that's the worst disaster of it all. The third is the euro in itself, which is now an accepted fact. It is there to stay, and whether we like it or not, we have to accept it. It's controlled by the ECB, which means, anybody knows that word, ECB? European Central Bank, exactly. It's in, you know in which town it is and who's running it? It's in Frankfurt, run by a Frenchman now called Jean-Claude Trichet. C'est Jean-Claude, no? Jean-Claude Trichet. But I will start with where Steve normally starts. he starts with something he calls numisma, the Greek word. He starts with the money itself from the old days. He starts speaking about the coins. I went to a conference he did in London in the English Parliament last year. And by the way, I'd like to say something first. When that conference started in the House of Lords, there were several lords present. One of the spectators, out of the participants like me, he rose up and held up the book and said, "Gentlemen, I'd like you to know one thing before Mr. Zalanger starts speaking. This is the best book ever written on the subject of money. And I think that every university and every banking school and whatever it's called, they should all have this book." Now, that was a very nice start, wasn't it? You don't mind me saying that, no? No. Okay. Now, Steve always starts with the money itself. So I thought I would follow Steve's idea and start with the money and showing you the physicals, what we call metálicos in Spain, whether it's paper or coins. It's called metálicos. And this is the cash. Now, when this euro was introduced a couple of years ago in 1901, at the end of the year, and since then these coins, is a €2 coin, a €1 coin, 50 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents, and then the small ones, 5, 2, and 1. It's a 1, 10, no, what do you call it, 1, 2, 5 system, okay? So, yes, I wanted to pass it around. Don't take the coins out of the plastic there, because it's money, you know, it's real money. It's not fiat money. We talk a lot about fiat money here, but that's real money. And you can have, for a coin like this, you can have a whole cup of coffee in Spain, and for a coin like that, you can have a cup of coffee in France. So it's not the same value in every country when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, because that's what money is all about. It's what is it for the little guy who spends it every day, who owns it. And while these coins are going down the row, you can send this to the third row, and if somebody wants to take a closer look, or buying them from me at a bad rate when I leave, because this is what I've found between France and Spain in the last month only, since I knew I was going to do this. I thought it would be fun to show them around, because how many of you have ever seen a euro before? Oh my God, there's no point in showing you. Half of the population here knows what it is. But not so many of you have seen the big bills, right? Because these small coins are not worth very much. Let me show you the real money here. Now we got something you haven't got. We got a 500 euro bill. You know how much money that is all in one shot? That's $600, right? Roughly, huh? And so over you're circulating right now $1,200, huh? I trust you, huh? Because and you can. You see, there's certain inconveniences. The coin, when they came out, people said, some bad press said that you got cancer from handling large quantities of them because the people who made them had not been thinking right. Now, I can hardly see, unless I put on my glasses here, I can not see the difference between the 1 and the 2 euro piece, and sometimes I pay 2 euro for a cup of coffee instead of 1 euro. It's hard to distinguish the difference between the 10 and the 20. No, not the 10 and the 20, but the 50 and the 1. You know, it's really not too smart. And they should have made something really nice. I always liked the greenbacks. That's pretty money. I like, except for the text on them, but I shall not go into that here. The 5 euro is in bad paper. And the 200 euro bill and the 500 euro bill you never see. Now, it's even hard. I went to 3 different banks to get one. And I went to 3 other banks to get the 200 note. Now, why don't we see that? The big bills, where are they? Now, this is the greatest thing about the euro. These big bills are very good for the drug smugglers. You know, a suitcase full, you know, you can pile up a considerable amount of money when your bills become that big. It's very powerful. And the coins are especially good for the beggars, because we used to give them 10 or 20 pesetas. Now you have to give them 10 or 20 cents, euro cents. So the beggars are 6.6 times richer than they were before. So the euro has certain advantages. That's why I changed my mind, okay? Now, let's get to the more serious part of it. There are 50 billion pieces, 50 billion coins, like you see there, in circulation in the 12 countries. There are 12 different kinds. And there are some of them I could not collect. They're the one from the Vatican and San Marino. They're bought up by the numismat. They disappeared from the market. The smaller pieces, the 1 and 2 cents, you don't see either. There are some countries you don't see them anymore, like in Finland and in Belgium. They took them out of circulation because it's simply not economical to handle them for the banks. So there's several mistakes made on the system. Anyway, there are 50 billion pieces, and there are 50 billion bills like that. 50 billion, like the real ones you see there. The total value are 664 billion euro, $800 billion. And the total cost of conversion when we took all our old money out of circulation has been a couple of billions. Well, I guess somebody made a profit on doing this, you know, but that's what it cost. So, nobody ever heard about a guy called Jimmy Goldsmith? No, he's dead now. He's an French-English financier. He's a friend of mine. And he was lobbying. Somebody else says lobbying. First time I heard about lobbying, yeah. In England and against the euro, so keep England out of it. And they made it. But now, whoever's against it, whoever's it for, it's a non-reversible status. It's a true currency in its own right. You like that word, no? True currency in its own right. For 305 million Europeans so far. But there will be more coming. Next time, I believe, some Scandinavian countries, maybe certainly one day England, but it's going to take some time. Now, look at the main arguments for the common currency. Do these pens write? Or you had trouble with it? Who was using this? Look. What were the original arguments for that common currency? So let's look at the positive side first. And then afterwards, I'll talk a little bit about the negative sides of it, because there's a negative aspect of it. First of all, eliminating, if you move the board, it will look terrible. Eliminating. No, I can't write like that. Eliminating cost of conversion. It is obvious that when you go to another country, when an industry, not the tourist, that's also an advantage, of course, because there's no more changing money every time you drive 500 miles. Can you imagine you went from here to Minnesota, you had to change to another currency, and every time there was somebody making a profit on it? I mean, that would take a lot away from you. But it takes more away from the industries who are selling their product in the other country. When France sells to Germany, and it's not all that far, Europe is very small. So that was quite a lot of money that we took away from the bankers. Now, there is particularly no exchange rate uncertainty. No exchange rate uncertainty. It's uncertain. Can anybody see what I write anyway? No, so I may as well not write. But I was supposed to have a reacher projector with some slides, you know, but the systems never work. Anyway, you understand. It makes, obviously, capital investments in other countries a lot easier, a lot safer. You invest in Spain and you're sure to get back pesetas, you know. What is the pesetas going to look 5 years from now? If my French enterprise invest my French francs, you know, everybody thinks their own money was better. So you're always very wary of where's my money going to end up, you know, what is that going to be worth the day I sell it? Like I had some people buying property from me in France, and they doubled the value of the property, but the French franc dropped to half when they got the money back. So what did they make 6 years later? Nothing. And there were worse examples than that for a safe investment like real estate. So some people, they were thinking twice before they bought a property cross-country. But what is even more important, but there is no possible devaluation in order to increase competitivity. What do you call it? Yeah, there's no, because before the governments could manipulate to increase to make the merchandise cheaper. You just devalue and you make more money. That does not exist anymore within the Eurozone, right? Interest equalization. The same interest rate in every country. The central bank is dictating, because there are fortunately dictators. In that sense, I like dictators. Of course, it's in accordance with the other central banks, and they get together and talk about it, but they do decide what the interest rate is going to be. Inflation control. Now, there was supposed to be the same inflation in each country. It's based. The rule says not more than 1.5% over the 3 best performing members. Now, however that works out, but that's the mathematical formula, very simply spoken. So the inflation should not be more than about 3% in every one of the countries. Now, the central bank independence with power to enforce their directive, their directive, how do you say Yeah, directive? Directive. I can't speak English anymore, I'm sorry. Anyway, that's an extra complication. But in Europe, we have a much bigger complication. I mean, can you imagine getting United States, if they spoke a different language in each of their states, and they had a different money? Now, even if they now got the same money, they still have 9 different languages within those 12 countries. And they're very different, and most people don't speak the other guy. I worked in every country in Europe, so I speak the different European languages. But it's difficult when you have different cultures, different money. Well, at least now we got the common money. So it's facilitating exports, making investments easy traveling, work conditions in other countries, good for tourism. Industries are happy. So who's unhappy? Why am I unhappy? Well, I'm not particularly unhappy. As I say, I have at least a neutral attitude to it. But who pays the bill? The little guy. Because a cup of coffee before cost 100 pesetas, and now it costs €1, because everything has been rounded up to 1. You buy a bunch of radishes, or what do you call it, or cabbage in the market. No, but that's what economy is all about, is the little guy has to, the 98% of people have to eat every day, and they go out and do their shopping, and they find out at the end of the month that it's at least it's gone up with 10% a year since we started that, so it's already up 30% prices. Now that's inflation, no? Who's responsible for that? There are some bakeries like mine in Barcelona, where I live, is very honest. The bread cost 92 cents, They didn't round it up to €1, but most have rounded it up to €1. That's 8% more, Little numbers look like nothing, but percent-wise, it's a very high and very big difference. So it's a little bit like, it's not a good idea, like it was not a good idea to link the Argentine peso to the dollar, like they did some years ago. Now they're back to the peso, right? Why? When I took the bus in Buenos Aires, the year I was there, like 5 years ago, the bus ride cost 1.5 peso before. The next time I went, it cost $1.50. Now that's a lot of money for getting on the bus, for the little guy who only makes $800 a month or whatever it is to get to work every day. And in that respect, the euro is evil. But somebody has to pay the bill. Everything became more expensive, rounded up. although a political victory is claimed by every party, left and right and center, it's all loved by everybody. And the big argument is no more war between countries. Now, well, we can cross our fingers and hope that that's right, but it's not the money that unites people. It's more the language, and the languages will not change. We're not going to have one language. We're not going to make a Euro language. It's not going to be German for sure, no? And even if the French think so, it's not going to be French, huh? Jamais, huh? And it's not going to be English either. So we'll keep our difficulties. Now, which are the macroeconomic consequences now, 6 years after the creation of Euro? Because at first we had the EQ. The EQ, you remember that? ECU? No? Yeah, there are a few people who know. That was a currency basket. That's existed since a long time, okay? That was before the euro, but the euro was exactly 1 euro, 1 EQ, which was 2 Deutschmark. Now, what has happened in macroeconomic sense is that we thought there would be an alignment, there would be an equalization between all the countries in Europe. But that has not taken place. There are some people that are ahead of the game and some people are behind the game. There are some people, there are some countries, excuse me. There are some countries that have an inflation in spite of the regulation of the 1.5 over the 3 best performing ones, which are not keeping their promise. But on the other hand, how can the central bank punish the members of the Eurogroup? I mean, how can you implement, if you're like in Greece 2 years ago, it was 7%. Now that's completely illegal. The next year, that meaning 2004, it was last year, it was 5%. That was the worst example we have. Now, how can the central bank, with all its power to implement the policy, how can they punish the state? Well, they can impose fines because every country has deposited their foreign reserves with the central bank. So they can take it away from them, but they don't do that. It's quite tricky. It's not. Let me just say that I wrote here now, the countries which were least competitive 6 years ago are now even less competitive. The expected adjustment have not taken place. Almost all are having problems keeping their engagement of not exceeding a 3% annual deficit, etc. Now, there are other problems. I have a problem that I call chi in my own little book. And chi for me are traffic, trucks, and tunnels. Now, Europe is not America. It's a very small place with a lot of people. I mean, we have more people in Europe on a territory which is much smaller. And if we want an economic boom, most people want an economic boom. I don't really want it because it means a lot of pollution. It means a lot of... the country I love in Europe is Italy, for instance. Are there any Italians here? Anybody speaks Italian? Or no Italian, so take no risk. It's a country, my preferred country. It's physical beauty. I mean, the Italian towns, the countryside and La Toscana, I lived there for several years. And I love Italy. And Italian women, oh, no, my wife is present. Now, it's fantastic. But now, the last time I went there, I went to Bologna. I couldn't get into town. There were so many cars. So I took the small roads around town. They're also full. It's completely congested by trucks and traffic. And there's not a mountain in Switzerland that doesn't look like one of the cheese, full of holes. And some of them you burn up in alive. It's terrible. We don't want to become United States or another powerful. I mean, I don't want. I like to be quiet, to have some countryside left. Here you have enough space to permit yourself. I mean, Chicago. I looked out of the window from my taxi when I came to O'Hara last night, and frankly, the countryside doesn't look very good around Chicago. You know, it's all. You know how it looks: industries and chimneys and it's not the worst in the world, but it's not pretty or anything. It's all around modern towns. You see nothing but it's not pretty buildings anymore. It's supermarkets and not supermarkets, but commercial. And same thing in Europe. French provincial towns. You know, you have to go through a whole ring of barracks. What do you call it? So badly built commercial selling cars and carpets and what do you know? And huh? Yes, suburbs have become ugly. Okay? Fortunately, we have a law against billboards in the countryside. That's already something. Now, this is not the worst. I would like to. How much time do I have? I can speak about this for hours.
You've got 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Now, the repercussions of an artificially imposed structure. We have an artificially imposed structure which is called north, south, east, west. Take Italy. You have the north of Italy and the south of Italy. Now the south of Italy is empty because they all went to the north where the money is. we have Germany, Greece. You know, people are leaving the nice countries to go to the not so nice countries. We have in Holland. You know how many Turks we have? Holland is a very small territory. It's mainly underwater. If something like New Orleans happens in Holland, they're all dead. There's no more Holland at all, and it's a country with 6 million people or something like it. But they have 650,000 Turks. Now, I love Turkey. I have nothing against Turks, but we really have an immigration problem. And if we continue this way, we will destroy the European cultures. If we destroy the differences, we will destroy the foundations of our cultures, our cultural heritage. It's very important. It's a risk of I write better than I speak. So we are going ahead with the risk of destabilizing populations. I don't work in my own country anymore. Why should I? No, I'm also destabilized. Anyway, I'd like to end up by comparing Europe to the United States. Now, Jean-Claude Trichet, you know, the head of the ECB, he says, you cannot compare Europe to the United States because you can have a recession in Massachusetts and have a boom in Texas, or have a recession or a catastrophe in Louisiana, and you can have a boom in California. They look at the United States as a whole. The federal bank looks at the country as a whole, not region by region. But this is not our case. We look at by country, which is a different ballgame. And we cannot adjust anymore by playing with the interest rate, because the poor countries before, the ones that were really behind, like Greece, like, you know how much behind the Greeks were. It's not to knock the Greeks at all, but they're countries which have been poor for a long time, and they could play with the interest rate. They can't do it anymore. You all have to have the same interest rate. So that's a difficult situation. You understand, Europe is not and never will be a United States, because some people say, well, we have all the same. And first of all, we have the language differences. It's not a melting pot in the sense that we have in the United States, because they all came from found a common ground and started on the same level, started with the same language and with the same money, and it became America. We can never become Europe, really, in that same sense. So there are lots of questions you can ask yourself, cultural questions, identity, language, traditions, in order to create a nation. It's a community of cultures, identity, which constitutes our heritage and will be the vital pillar of its stability. The politicians who founded Maastricht did not understand that. You know where Maastricht is? No? It's in Holland. I mean, That is, to me, more important than the money, that we don't lose our roots. Because when you lose your roots, you become a wreck. You know, you have to keep your cultural identity. Now, what do you feel? You feel that it will change? The euro will change Europe? Do you have any idea about it? It has already. Not for the best. Well, it has certain advantages. Anyway, what has it changed in relation to the United States? And I think that's the end of it, of my speech. There's something, I've been selling America for many years. I've been in the financial business, and I've been selling American management and investing in America, in American mutual funds, in American shares, and the financial business. We, unfortunately, I feel terrible to say that in front of you, who are against the monetary system, but I've been exploiting the existing monetary system, and with mixed feelings. I don't always feel good about it, and I don't do it anymore either. But the magic of the dollar has disappeared. When I was young, if you could work for an international company and get paid in dollars and bank in Switzerland, that was it. Now, you can, that was the maximum. I had some very, very smart friend of mine, they worked for an American company, for McCann and for Pfizer or whatever it was, and they got paid in dollars. It was really super. The magic of the dollar has disappeared because it has gone down in relation even to the euro, but that may fluctuate back again, I don't know. I'm going to ask Steve in a few minutes, who said years ago, Ole, don't worry about the dollar. Now, do you still say that, Steve?
Ole, don't worry about the dollar.
Okay, fine. I am worried. The capability and the integrity of American management, it's a very hard one to sell after all this bad press. Arthur Andersen, Enron, WorldCom, you know the rest of the story. It used to be the best market for investors, much better. The stock market was performing much better. The Nasdaq now, 5 years later, after a severe crisis, is still 40% behind. It's no longer the best market in the world, for the moment. It may come back, I don't know, up to you to tell me. It may now be more rewarding to invest in China or Brazil or India. The mutual funds that have done, I'm at the birth of mutual funds in Europe by introducing them 35 years ago. Maybe I still have 1.5 minutes. That's fantastic. Now, the worst is political power has weakened since 50 years. Failures in Vietnam, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're all there. Fine. Very good. Thank you. Failures in Vietnam, failure in Afghanistan, failure in Iraq. You know the story better than I. But all these things together, the scandals, the political power, a de facto devaluation. Is it best to come here? I'm happy to come here. It's cheaper for me. It will be more expensive for you to have a vacation in Europe or go to a business in Europe. Or would you like now in the future to buy renminbi? Is it better to invest in yuan? Mr. Tongo? What's your name? Fortune? Oh, no. Ni hao. What?
We have the next speaker supposed to start 10 minutes ago.
Okay. Now, I have to come to my conclusion. We cannot make a worldwide currency, no? I met a tourist many years ago in America and said, why don't they make the dollar all over the place? We cannot do that. And we probably never get to that. Now, by the way, I just wrote a book with a couple of suggestions, but nobody wants to publish it because it's too subversive, So if anybody knows a publisher who likes that kind of subversive, come to see me. I'm interested. Let me just read you shortly my conclusion. It's just 7 lines. The euro is a currency reform more than a monetary reform. Since the euro hasn't changed the monetary systems, it's exactly the same as before. The euro may even make it harder to implement a new reform of the current economic fraud, having taken place for centuries. One more illusion. Okay. Thank you.